Hello, and welcome to another video from 3.5 Archive. Today we're going to be doing our 40th D&D 3.5 Prestige class review, with a look at the Combat Medic from the Heroes of Battle sourcebook. Heroes of Battle is one of the lesser-known 3.5 supplements that focuses on running military campaigns, so it makes sense that there would be a Prestige class like this in here. Combat medics accompany elite strike teams or simply work among the troops on the battlefield to heal and save as many as possible. Most of them are going to be clerics of the gods of healing and war. Some of them can be bards, some of them can be rangers and paladins. Many of them are healers, actually, a class from the Miniatures Handbook that focuses on healing spells to the exclusion of all else. If there is such a thing as a healbot class, as you would call it, the healer is definitely that. And the combat medic can work very well with any of these classes, although a bard is going to need to take a little bit of multi-classing in order to get heal as a class skill, as you will need 8 ranks in the heal skill to get into this prestige class. So to be a combat medic, as I said, you're going to need 8 ranks in heal, 4 ranks in concentration, and you're going to be any non-evil alignment, so you can't be evil to be a combat medic. That makes sense. For feats, you're going to need combat casting and dodge. Now, neither of these feats are particularly good. Dodge is, a mediocre feat, but it's really not something that you're probably going to want to take as a healing-focused character. Something like Healing Devotion or Augment Healing is going to be what you're going to want to be focusing on feat-wise. So the fact that you need to take these two somewhat irrelevant feats is the first thing that's holding back this prestige class. Combat casting makes some degree of sense because you are trying to cast healing spells in combat, but it's not a very good feat overall, and dodge is similarly not the sort of thing that you would expect. You're probably going to be in heavy armor if you're playing a cleric, or you're going to be staying just behind the front line, so you don't really need to be using the dodge feat. Not to mention, if you're a combat medic in a situation with, dozens or maybe hundreds of opponents on the battlefield, choosing just one with dodge for a +1 bonus to your armor class isn't going to be any good at all. Lastly, you're going to need to be able to cast Cure Light Wounds, and in some ways this is the least difficult requirement of this prestige class to fulfill. Needing 8 ranks in healing again is going to mean that any bards that come into this are going to need to multi-class a little bit in order to gain access to the healing skill as a class skill, unless they want to get into this prestige class much later in their career. The concentration ranks are to be expected for any spellcasting character, but it's the 2 feats that again are going to be your biggest issue getting into this prestige class, and that would be why I would rate it moderately restrictive, possibly even very restrictive, because as a cleric or a healer or a bard, you're not going to be getting very many bonus feats. In fact, you're not going to be getting any bonus feats at all. So if you're playing a character trying to get into this after 5th level, that's going to eat up both of your feats. If you play a human, you might get 1 more feat, which you might want to put into Augment Healing to get yourself some extra healing out of your healing spells. But being forced to sink 2 feats just to get this prestige class started really is not going to make it very tempting to start out with. So let's look at what it gives you. Fortunately, the Combat Medic is going to give you spellcasting at every level, so your spellcasting will advance throughout this prestige class. This is a 5-level prestige class, so you're not going to be spending that long in it, but even so, you want to make sure that you are advancing your spellcasting at all times. That's the most important part of any spellcasting related prestige class. You're going to have a half-level base attack bonus, a good reflex save, which is a little bit odd, but it makes sense when you think about how many fireballs are being flung around on a fantasy battlefield, and you're only going to have a D6 hit die, which is a little bit disappointing. That's a downgrade from the cleric's D8, and that already is only really average for a 3.5 character. So you're not going to have as many hit points as a cleric, and you're not going to gain any proficiency with armor or weapons or anything, which again makes sense. This is going to be focusing on healing creatures on a battlefield, healing your allies. So let's look at the class features. At level 1, you're going to get Healing Kicker. You're going to get 3 of these. Essentially, whenever you cast a Conjuration healing spell on an ally, you can imbue the spell with a secondary effect. You can use this ability once a round, up to a total number of times per day equal to your class level plus your wisdom modifier. So in the end, probably anywhere from 10 to maybe even 15 times per day if you get your wisdom really up there. The secondary effect lasts for 1 round unless otherwise noted, and you can only put 1 secondary benefit on any spell. And unfortunately, you can't use it on yourself, only on other creatures. So this is a very selfless ability, but that's going to make sense as you're going to see. At level 1, you're going to be able to imbue a healing spell with Sanctuary. This is going to mean that any creatures that want to attack the target of your healing spell are going to have to succeed on a will save in order to do so. The downside is that the target of your healing spell can't attack themselves. They can cast non-attack spells, but they're not able to attack. Now, this isn't going to be very good for the fighter in your party, although it might be worth doing anyway, just in case, somebody attacks them before the fighter's next turn. You can use it, and they might ruin it anyway by attacking, but at least it maybe eventually prevented one attack. This is going to be better for healing downed lower level allies. So this is again feeding into the concept of this being a combat medic for an army. If this character heals a downed creature, then they are going to be able to get back up and move out of harm's way. And that's going to be, the Sanctuary is going to help them with that. So at level 2, you're going to gain defensive casting. This lets you, this enhances your ability to cast defensively. You gain a competence bonus equal to your class level on concentration checks to cast defensively. And this is okay of an ability. Eventually your concentration skill is going to be high enough that you're not going to need this anymore. And you're already going to have bonuses to that from combat casting. So eventually you're going to get an extra +9 to casting defensively. That's going to free up some skill ranks, which I guess is important considering that this and a lot of the classes that feed into it only have 2+ intelligence modifier skill points per level, but it's really not that strong of an ability. And again, this class seems to want to focus very much on being able to cast your spells defensively, which is something that a lot of spellcasters can find other ways of accomplishing. This feature would be a little bit better if the class didn't require combat casting to get into, but it does, and as a result, it makes it feel a lot more lackluster. Also at second level, you're going to gain the Field Healer ability. This allows you to make a heal check to provide first aid as a move action rather than a standard action. And you can take 10 on such checks even when stress or distraction would prevent you from doing so. So given that you're going to have 8 ranks in healing and almost certainly a positive wisdom score modifier, this is going to mean that you can automatically stabilize a creature as a move action. Now, you're still going to have to be moving up to that creature, but you could be surrounded by several downed allies. You could move up, cast a healing spell on one of them one round, the next round cast another healing spell, and then stabilize a third creature. So this is going to make you really effective at healing downed creatures, which again is what the class is about. Is this a great feature on its own? No, not really. And in an adventuring party, it's very rare that this is going to come up. But again, if you're healing a bunch of downed allies, trying to keep some lower level fighters alive, then this can be really great. At level 3, you gain mobility as a bonus feat. This is pretty strange given that, you already have taken the dodge feat, and if you were going to get mobility as a bonus feat, well, why did you need to take dodge? You'd think that it would give you this feat without requiring the prerequisite, but apparently it does. You are at the very least, you are getting it as a bonus feat, not having to spend a feat on it, but mobility is not known for being one of the better feats in the game. Yes, it's going to protect you from attacks of opportunity while moving, and the idea here is that it helps you get to a fallen ally to heal them. But again, if you're a cleric in heavy armor, you're probably not going to have to worry about that anyway. And the attacks of opportunity that you're really going to be worrying about are the ones from casting your spell, because that can cause you to lose your spell. Getting hit while moving probably isn't going to matter. The little anecdote from the Rules Compendium, notwithstanding of the cleric whose movement provoked an opportunity attack and killed not 1 but 2 player characters, but those sorts of scenarios are pretty rare, and mobility just isn't that great of a feat. This is a pretty disappointing 3rd level feature. Fortunately, you're also going to get Healing Kicker number 2, which is going to be a bonus on reflex saves, a competence bonus equal to your class level. So you're going to give them up to a +5 on reflex saves after you heal them. So if you have an enemy wizard that's flinging fireballs at your army, odds are that the fireballs are just killing your warriors outright. But if they do survive and there's another one incoming, and I don't know, I guess they have evasion or something, this will give them a little bit of a benefit to maybe keep them alive a little bit longer. Unfortunately, with low level allies, fireball is pretty much an instant kill on them, whether they pass their reflex save or not. But maybe this can keep them alive a little bit longer. On your allies, this can be a little bit more useful as they're going to make more use of that reflex save. They're probably going to have a better bonus to start with. But again, it is quite situational, and you're probably going to be using the Sanctuary effect more. Although actually, you're probably going to be using the 5th level Healing Kicker more than either of these two. Then at 4th level, you're going to gain Evasion. This works just like the Rogue or Monk class feature. It would be great if you could give Evasion to the allies that you heal to maybe protect them from area spells, but at least this helps protect you. You already have a better reflex save than you would as a cleric, so this lets you make some use of it. Evasion is never a bad feature. It doesn't really feed into this prestige class. Maybe some sort of ability that helps, keep you in the fight on the front lines would be a little bit better, but Evasion's not bad. It's probably better than the Field Healer class feature, even though that's a little bit more fitting to the class. So Evasion's not bad. You're still not going to have an excellent reflex save, but it's better than nothing. Finally, at level 5, you're going to get Healing Kicker Aid. This is going to let you do a maximized aid effect on any creature besides yourself that you cast a Conjuration Healing spell on. The effect's going to last for 1 minute or until the temporary hit points run out, and it's going to work just like aid. So it's going to give a bonus on attacks and saves against fear, I believe. And it's also going to give 8 plus your class level temporary hit points. So this can be really great for downed allies or even just for your party members. Extra temporary hit points are never something to sneeze at. It's basically enhancing your healing. And it's a good additional effect to have to put on your healing spells. This is probably better than either of the other two options. Sanctuary is good in some ways, but it's a risk that it will even have any effect, and it does prevent your ally from attacking. It's good for retreating wounded soldiers. The reflex save one is alright as well, but adding some temporary hit points and a little bit of attack bonus, that's the sort of thing that you'd like to see. It's a little bit like that domain-based healing imbuing feat from, I believe, Complete Champion, which would likely be a good thing to take alongside this prestige class, although unfortunately a lot of the effects in that would probably outshine these. Also at 5th level, you gain the ability to lose any prepared spell or spell slot of 6th level or higher in order to cast Heal, even if that spell is not normally on your spell list. If you don't have the ability to cast 6th level spells, you can't use this class feature. This is a pretty great ability, and it expands on the cleric's ability to convert their prepared spells into cure spells, but not necessarily any conjuration healing spell. So being able to expand this for spells of 6th level or higher, not have to just do cure mass, and be able to do heal instead, is a very nice class feature to have. It's a little bit odd though, because you would think that a combat medic would want to focus on mass cure spells. And in fact, this does make this class feature a little bit odd, but I guess maybe it's throwing it a bone to be a useful prestige class for situations where you're not in a large battle with hundreds of soldiers. It's a good capstone to the prestige class alongside the best option for your healing kicker. But overall, this prestige class does feel a little bit lackluster in some ways, and a lot of it is because of the 2 feats that it requires to get into it, as well as the mobility bonus feat and the field healer, which while flavorful isn't that great of a feature. That said, it's certainly a lot less offensive than the mobility one and the defensive casting, which itself is only a problem because of the combat casting requirement. If only combat casting were required to get into this prestige class, it would probably be a lot more tolerable. Clerics are already starved for feats, and a healer character would be even more so. And as a result, they're really not going to want to give up feats for something like dodge that really has nothing to do with what the class is doing. I understand the concept that they were going for here of a very mobile healer who excels at getting through the thick of combat to help fallen allies, but that's what heavy armor is for, and that's what taking a few hits is for. And the dodge and mobility aren't going to help you while you are trying to concentrate on a spell. So that's where the combat casting makes some sense, but again, eventually you're going to have enough ranks and concentration to not have to worry about it. So this class could do without either of its feat requirements to make it a little less restrictive to get into. Again, it could be tolerable with just one of them, the combat casting one most likely, but as is, it's a fairly mediocre cleric prestige class. The healing kickers are nice, but the feats that allow you to imbue your healing spells with something based on your cleric domain are likely to be a lot more flavorful and potentially more powerful. In fact, if we take a look at the imbued healing feat from Complete Champion, we can see that whenever you cast a 1st level or higher conjuration healing spell when you have that feat, And you have to have, of course, access to the domains. Depending on your domain, you could give something like electricity resistance 5 for 1 minute per level, damage reduction 3/good, fire resistance 5, damage reduction 3/evil. Healing would give 1 temporary hit point per hit die to the target of your healing spell. That might not be so good for lower level characters, lower level allies, but it certainly would be a lot more useful for higher level characters. And after, let's see, 13th level, you're going to be better off doing that than doing the healing kicker from this prestige class. Protection domain for this will give your ally +2 to armor class while fighting defensively. I suppose that could in some ways replace the sanctuary benefit. There are a lot of great options for the imbued healing feat. And while it does require you to have that domain, at the same time, if you're going to be playing this as a cleric, and you probably are, then you're going to be better off doing that in many cases. Now, there's really nothing that says that you can't also have the imbued healing feat and do both of these, and that would be a really great healing based character. But as is, when you have a feat that's overshadowing in many cases the features of a prestige class, then you really have to take a hard look at that prestige class and ask yourself if you really want it. And again, as a cleric, you're not going to be getting class features every level anyway, so it's better than nothing to take a prestige class. But you have to look at what it costs to get into this, and requiring the dodge feat is basically a throwaway. And also the hidden cost of having to have a 13 dexterity, when dexterity is usually a dump stat for clerics, or at the very least not a priority, makes this a very difficult prestige class to consider. If you roll very well, and you just happen to have that kind of dexterity anyway, and you want to take dodge, then you can definitely go into this. As is, I would give this prestige class 4 stars for concept and 2 stars for execution. It really could be a lot better. It could be a lot more flexible. As is, it's okay. It's worth taking if you want it, if you look at it and you think it looks like fun to play. I would definitely suggest taking the imbued healing feat alongside it if you're coming in as cleric. If you're coming in as a healer, well, good luck, because the healer class is not a very durable or powerful one. But it will help you out, and the imbued or the spontaneous healing feature will be a lot of help to the healer as well, as they are going to lack what the cleric has to offer. So that's going to be about it for this D&D 3.5 Prestige Class review. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and so on. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time here on 3.5 Archive.